this is Jamie Eisner, who I don't know who Jamie Eisner is, but he puts out the odds for TJ Watt's next team if it's not the Steelers. The Eagles are favored to land him at 3-1. The Niners are the second choice at 4-1. The Lions are the third choice at 6-1. Now, I threw out Trey Hendrickson earlier this week. People were like, Krug, you're clickbait garbage, blah, 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 blah. No team in the NFL's got, two pass rushers, blah, blah, blah. Well, if the Lions get TJ Watt, they would have Aiden Hutchinson on one side and TJ Watt on the other side.
Scary.
If the Eagles got TJ Watt, the Eagles would have what? They would have they're a 3-4, so they would have Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche, Antoine Powell-Ryland, and TJ Watt.
Yeah,
right?
And Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis on the inside with Moro Ajomo, who I think could be better than Milton Williams.
Yeah, so I mean, the Eagles suddenly, they have this awesome defense with this. They just won the Super Bowl, but they can afford TJ Watt, but the Niners, couldn't afford TJ Watt or Hendrickson or any of these guys. I mean, the bottom line is you can afford any one player you want. I would say this. The Niners have a couple holes, right? They've got a hole maybe at wide receiver, but I would try to fill that just from either from within or guys who are cut at the cut down. They have a need in the defensive backfield. I do the same thing. Try to find guys who are cut at the cut down. But at defensive line, nobody good, nobody impactful who can rush the passer is going to be cut. That's just a law of the NFL. They don't. Yeah. Good offensive linemen, good defensive pass rushers do not get cut at the cut down. So, one, do you believe? I mean, you're more tied into the Pennsylvania, dialogue. The Steelers have made no inkling that they're interested in moving TJ Watt, but Watt wants out. Are they going to move him? And what do you think? I mean, should the Niners say, you know what, our budget be damned, let's go after a Hendrickson or a TJ Watt. Let's get that dominant guy opposite Nick Bosa, and let's have the dominant defensive line that we were planning on having in 2017 that we haven't quite ever seemed to be able to build to completion. They've gotten close to a Super Bowl. They haven't gotten over the top. And to me, if they want to get over the top with a young group of DBs and a young back seven, they better get a damn good front four. And if I can get Hendrickson or TJ Watt, I'm going to try it. What do you think?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Teams will never cut quality offensive linemen or quality defensive linemen. I mean, these games are won and lost in the trenches and at the point of attack, and it's really hard to find quality players there. I'm looking in the chat right now, and everybody's saying, why do we keep talking about getting a pass rusher? Why not load up on the offensive line? Bring in somebody there. There aren't good offensive linemen available. There is a reason for that, because teams put the utmost importance on the offensive line, kind of outside of San Francisco, and they don't let quality players go there. And all of the good offensive linemen are on teams right now. So there isn't an offensive lineman that I would be pounding the table for San Francisco to sign right now in NFL free agency. There aren't any good ones. There are depth pieces on other teams, but you'd have to trade for those players. So as far as TJ Watt goes, look, I think Pittsburgh ends up signing him to a deal. All of the moves that they have made this offseason have pointed to them going all in. They first traded for DK Metcalf. They signed Aaron Rodgers. They signed Darius Slay. They trade for Jalen Ramsey. In that trade, they trade for Jonnu Smith. That's a Steelers team that's going all in. They think that the landscape is open in the AFC. I personally think the Chiefs are a little bit vulnerable. The Baltimore Ravens always choke in the playoffs. So too do the Buffalo Bills. The Cincinnati Bengals can be had as well. And Pittsburgh looks at this as their chance. Why would they mess that up by getting rid of TJ Watt, who's been an all-pro player in 5 of the last 6 years and is on this Hall of Fame trajectory? So I think the Steelers end up signing him. I think the holdup is this. All of these players have gotten paid this offseason, the likes of Max Crosby and Myles Garrett. Micah Parsons might get paid soon, and the going rate for Watt could be north of $40 million. Garrett got $40 million per year, highest paid non-quarterback in the history of football, and TJ Watt is right up there with them. So the concern and the issue with trading for him is that if you trade for TJ Watt, he's going to be 31 years old in October. Yes, he's been highly productive, but he's dealt with injuries from time to time. And you would have to give him a massive contract in addition to some damn good draft capital. So from that standpoint, I don't think it's that realistic to trade for a player like that. I think a trade for Trey Hendrickson would be much more realistic. Now, he is in that similar age bracket. He's not going to cost as much, even though no player in the NFL has more sacks than him the last 2 years, 17 and a half the last 2 seasons. But with what you have to give up and what you have to pay him, you might save a little bit. So I think that would be the better trade candidate. You did a video on that. I didn't watch it. I saw that you did it. What were your reasons for why the Niners should do it?
For trading for Hendrickson?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just that he is, he's got an undeniable motor. He's a big time player they've never really had that dominant player opposite Nick Bosa. If you're in you're in your go moment, I think. And I don't think you're going to get there without some help on your pass rush. I mean, I know the Niners feel like they've addressed the pass. On paper, it looks like, they've addressed the D-line. Yeah. They drafted all these guys. Yeah, but you don't know. But none of those tackles are pass rushers. And then Mikael Williams played 30% of the snaps and rushed a lot from the inside and doesn't have gaudy sack totals. And then Bryce Huff, is an undersized guy. So all I'm saying is, like, hey, if you're going to have $40 million of cap room, what are you going to hang a flag on top of the flagpole that says we have $40 million of cap room? Yeah. Or are you going to hang a flag that says we won the 6th Lombardi? I mean, it's like, to me, it's like, go for it. I mean, absolutely. Now you have to go for it. I think the Niners are where the Rams were before the Rams said, screw it. Screw all these picks.
We're going all in.
Because the Rams, go back and look at the Rams drafting. They hit, they missed, they hit, they missed, they hit, they missed. They were close, but they weren't close enough. They hadn't gotten it done. They finally just said, screw it. We're going to trade draft picks for Stafford. We're going to trade draft picks for Ramsey. I think there was a third guy that they traded for. I can't remember.
OBJ, right?
OBJ, all right? They got Odell Beckham Jr. Von Miller, there you go. So they traded for veterans, got over the top, and now they got their Super Bowl. The Niners have gotten really close, and now their Super Bowl window's right there. They're in their Super Bowl window. They still have a lot of great players. Purdy's playing at a high level. I think this is go period for the Niners, and nobody's going to remember if you carried over $30 million or $40 million of cap room, but they are going to remember whether you won that 6th Lombardi or not. And to me, everything about the 49ers is they've always built from the front to the back. Yeah. For years and years. The Seattle emphasizes the back end and just tries to make do up front. The Niners emphasize the front and try to make do on the back end. The Niners' philosophy is, hey, let's get a big rush, let's move the quarterback, and then we can get it done with any number of guys on the back 7. So if that's your philosophy and it hasn't changed, then why wouldn't you go after Hendrickson? To me, if it came right down to it, if you said Trey Hendrickson, TJ Watt, or Shamar Stewart, to me, the guy that makes the most sense is Shamar Stewart, because they don't want to spend a lot of money, but Shamar Stewart doesn't cost a lot of money. They need a pass rusher, but they may need some interior pass rushers. And a guy like Stewart who can rush off the interior or outside, he needs Chris Kasarik to teach him hand placement, hand usage. He's super raw right now. But to me, if you could get Shamar Stewart, as we approach August 5th in that deadline, and you could get him for a 2nd and a 3rd round draft choice, I would do that. That's the guy that I would try to get, because I think they need more pass rush up front. And I'm not sure if they need another defensive end or if they need another defensive tackle. Preferably, if they could get a guy who could help them in both spots, it'd be great. And I think Stewart could do that.
Well, you think about this regime, right? Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, to your point, they've really prioritized the defensive line. But think about the moves that they've made in order to improve their pass rush, right? Like they traded for D Ford, they traded for Jordan Willis at the NFL trade deadline, they traded for Charles Omenihu, they traded for Chase Young, they gave a bag to Javon Hargrave. So they clearly value the defensive line. They just used the 11th overall pick on Mikael Williams, and they gushed about him in the pre-draft and the post-draft process. But if you do trade for a pass rusher, like what does that mean for the development of Mykel Williams? Is he just part of the rotation now? Does it stunt his development? Because if you bring in a star like Trey Hendrickson or TJ Watt, that could impact the path of Mykel Williams a little bit. It improves your depth, but you also just traded for Bryce Huff too. That's another move that they made for a pass rusher. So those are some of the questions that I have with if that move makes sense. I would be aggressive in trying to take advantage of the current construction of this roster. I just think the Niners want to reset a little bit, both on the books and with this team personnel wise, and then revisit things next year. I'm not saying that's the right strategy, but I think that's what their thinking is right now.
What do you think? Mayoko says Aiyuk could be ready for week 1. That seems so unlikely to me. I'm not sure why he's reporting that. There's been no field work, so it's not like we've seen him work out. We've had no media availability, so I don't know where he's getting his information. Somebody's obviously whispering to Mayoko for a reason to have him put it out there into the ether that Aiyuk could be back in week 1. What do you think's going on behind the scenes there?
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. And I have to be honest, like I would be shocked if Aiyuk is on the field week 1. And I know some people will say, well, Chase, look at Stephon Diggs. He tore his ACL and he went through spring practices with New England outside of the whole boat stuff that was going on with him. He only tore his ACL though. Like Brandon Aiyuk tore his ACL, his MCL, and he had other structural damage. And so within that report, Mayoko had said, I hear he's doing well, that the knee is even ahead of schedule. John Lynch always says the things about great athletes is that they're great healers too. And they kind of define the timeline of bouncing back from these injuries. Not out of the question for week 1 is what he said, but he also did say there is a chance he could start the year on PUP. If that happens, he misses the first 4 weeks. The injury happened October 20th of 2024. He had to wait for the swelling to go down, and I think Aiyuk got the surgery in November. And so you're talking about him being back by September 7th when the Niners play against Seattle, but it's not like he's going to get on the field without practicing at all. We're talking about him going through training camp practices, maybe even a preseason game. I just find all of that unlikely. I know there are some doctors out there like Jeff Mueller, who I think is a Niner fan and does a great job with some of the injury insight on X, saying there's a chance he could be back for week 1. Of course, there's a chance, but I just find it to be highly unlikely. I also don't think it's smart to rush him back. He's coming off an ACL, MCL, other structural damage. You're paying him a lot of money. You're leaning on him a lot. If you get a healthy Aiyuk back, he can dramatically improve your pass game. And Aiyuk, Pearsall, Jennings, Demarcus Robinson, 1 through 4 punch at wide receiver, I think is a very solid one if Aiyuk can get back to close to the 2023 form. But yeah, again, I would be very, very surprised if Aiyuk's back on the field week 1, considering the timeline and the severity of the injury.
You know, one of the things that I noticed when I started looking around the NFL is how many quarterback rooms this year I think could derail so many NFL teams.
Yeah.
And the more I look at it, the more I think, wow, there could be an awful lot of quarterback situations that could derail seasons. Let me give you an example. The Jets with Justin Fields. You got a good backup quarterback. You got 2 good young quarterbacks behind him. He's not very good. They went 5-12. They don't have a very good line. I think Justin Fields, a lot of people think, oh, Justin Fields is going to have a big year. What? No, he's going to have a disastrous year. I think Aaron Rodgers could blow up in Pittsburgh. He hasn't been there for the entire offseason. They got a young offensive line. He doesn't move all that well. His receivers don't know him that great. You know what I mean? You've got Pickens leaving, DK coming. I don't know. I think Pittsburgh, I mean, if Pittsburgh doesn't win 10 games or more, it's been probably a bad decision to go for Rodgers. I think the Rodgers room, I think Rodgers in that whole could blow up the Steelers season. I think the Browns season could blow up over the quarterback. I think the Colts season easily could blow up between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. I definitely think, the Raiders situation at quarterback could blow up. I think Dallas's situation at quarterback could blow up. The New York Giants, Joe Shane and Brian Dable, I think those guys are fired if Jackson Dart doesn't play well or the Giants don't make the playoffs, and they won 3 games last year. And you got Russell and Winston. I think that could blow up. I think Detroit's situation could blow up. You have Jared Goff. He's immobile. You just lost Frank Ragnow. Your starting center is a rookie. You really, you don't have Ragnow in front of Goff. Goff's not mobile.
Lost Ben Johnson.
Lost Ben Johnson. The backup quarterback's Hendon Hooker. I think the Lions are really in a world of hurt. I think Minnesota with J.J. McCarthy, that thing could go south. I think the Bears situation is absolute disaster. I mean, you have 3 new interior offensive linemen. You have a quarterback that holds the ball for an eternity who took 68 sacks, who doesn't really see the field. Lots of pressure on Ben Johnson. Tampa Bay could blow up. I mean, the backup quarterback's Kyle Trask. Atlanta could blow up. New Orleans has a bunch of quarterbacks that are nondescript. That could blow up. Miami with Tua. Seattle with Darnold. I think Jalen Milroe is going to be the starting quarterback going into 2026. So I just see a bunch of quarterback rooms that could take some of these teams out of contention. What do you think? Which quarterback room, if you had to bet on 1 or 2, truly blowing up and being bad, where's it going to be this year?
I mean, I'm just looking at the divisions here. If Tua gets hurt again, and if it's another concussion, he's done, I would imagine. And I think that Mike McDaniel, if the Dolphins don't perform well, he's already on the hot seat. He probably gets canned. Not a believer in Justin Fields. He can't throw over the middle, and he has never been a high completion percentage guy. I think accuracy is one of the most important skills that a quarterback can have. You look at a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph. You just don't know what you're going to get from Aaron Rodgers, although I think he played better than what people give him credit for last year, given the situation with the Jets. With the Browns, we don't know who's going to be the week 1 starter. I mean, their quarterback room is Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. That just screams to me that it's not going to go right. In the AFC South, Daniel Jones could start week 1 for the Colts. I don't think it's going to be Anthony Richardson, so I think it's going to be DJ. Trevor Lawrence, this is his last opportunity, in my opinion, to prove that he can be a legitimate quarterback in this league. The Titans drafted Cam Ward. That offense was not good last year. And so there's going to be a lot of pressure on a rookie who, when he was in college, had to make a lot of his best plays out of structure. So those are the teams that I'm most concerned about. I think the AFC West is in a decent spot. You mentioned Geno Smith. I think Pete Carroll really likes him. They're really going to rely on the ground game, and Geno Smith off play action is good. Bo Nix with the Broncos, I could see continued development there. Then you have Justin Herbert with the Chargers and Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. But you're right. There are a lot of teams with quarterback question marks, which is why it's great that the Niners have Brock Purdy. And if he can continue on this development, if he can continue to give San Francisco really good play, this Niners organization could be in a good spot. And I know people freaked out about that $55 million per year number. If he plays well, that number could end up being a bargain, because next offseason we could see CJ Stroud sign for 60 to 70 million. Jaden Daniels, if he plays well again soon, him and Caleb Williams could ask for 60 to 70 million. Lamar Jackson's contract is kind of outdated at this point. If he stays healthy, he's a multi-time MVP. He could demand 60 to 70 million. And so with the NFL salary cap going up, and with quarterback contracts going up, and quarterback uncertainty around the league, I think the Niners are actually in a good spot with Brock Purdy moving forward.
I think it was you, made a very compelling tweet saying that Deebo Samuel was addition by subtraction.
Yeah,
was that you?
That was me.
That was you.
Yeah.
And you backed it up like you always do. You said Deebo averaged 1.8 yards per route run in 2024. His yak numbers have also steadily declined. You make the point that Purdy's at his best when he can play point guard and kind of spray the ball around. For those who didn't read the tweet and didn't see your backing, Give me your argument on Deebo Samuel, because I mean there are a lot of people that are, hey, without Aiyuk and Pearsall kind of questionable, and you don't know about JJ's health, and Aiyuk's gone for probably at least a month. There's a lot of people going. DeMarcus Robinson going to be suspended probably 3 games. Who's going to catch the ball in September in weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4? But you're saying that trading Deebo was addition by subtraction. I kind of agree. The Niners receivers were 32nd in wide receiver separation.
Yeah.
Give us your argument. Give us your argument why getting rid of Deebo. Because, it's funny. The national story on the Niners is they lost Deebo. But I think Deebo, the guy that they really lost is Mooney. Mooney's probably the best player they lost, who was playing well. Deebo is done. But give me your argument.
Yeah, so I think the idea of Deebo and the name power that he has is better than the current player. And I think that the writing was on the wall that the Niners were going to get rid of one of their star wide receivers at some point, whether it be Brandon Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel. And then that really picked up momentum after San Francisco used a first-round pick on Ricky Pearsall. Remember, at that time, they hadn't signed Aiyuk to a contract extension, and there were a lot of trade rumors around Deebo. Deebo even admitted that last offseason, prior to this offseason, when he did get dealt, that the Niners were talking about potentially trading him. And so I had talked about that a lot really over the last couple of years because the writing was on the wall. I thought the Niners' actions spoke very loudly. That's frankly why I thought it was hilarious that Deebo blocked me on Twitter for talking about him getting traded. Then the next offseason, he demands a trade out of San Francisco. But with Deebo, it's not taking anything away from the player that he was. In 2021, when he was a first-team All-Pro, he was a bona fide MVP candidate. I mean, he put this offense on his back. He was a one-of-one player, one of the most dynamic overall players in the game. But since that 2021 All-Pro season, the numbers don't lie. The numbers have gone down. He has not passed the eye test. He's been out of shape. He's been slower. The tackle-breaking numbers have not been there. He's never been a great route runner. But when you lose speed and explosiveness, it impacts that. It impacts your ability to pick up yards after the catch. It hurts your ability to break tackles. Last year, we saw that. And last year, what happened was, especially when Deebo Samuel was outspoken about wanting the ball more, Kyle Shanahan tried to force feed him the ball. And the Niners were not at their best when they became too Deebo reliant. This was not the 2021 team when Deebo could put on the Superman cape and turn garbage into gold. So last year when Kyle Shanahan kept calling plays for Deebo and Brock Purdy felt pressure to get him the ball because of what Deebo said, it made this Niners offense less efficient and worse. Brock Purdy is a better quarterback when he can play free, when he's not pressing, when he can spread the ball out. And so those numbers have gone down for Deebo. He's not the same player. And I think that the Niners are better off because of it. I think the Niners are a better offense when they can operate as a well-rounded unit. And I also think that the trade of Deebo is going to lead to George Kittle being more a part of the passing game. You combine that with the addition of Luke Farrell, Kittle's going to get more targets because those targets have to go somewhere without Deebo. And by bringing in Farrell, Kittle's not going to have to block as much. And I, in turn, think this Niners offense will be better with George Kittle being more a part of the passing game because he's such a mismatch nightmare. Now, there are definitely unknowns at the wide receiver position heading into this year, but you took Ricky Pearsall in the first round. He needs to step up. Jawan Jennings had nearly 1,000 yards last year. He's a really good wideout. You drafted Jacob Cowing in the 4th round. He was the talk of OTAs and minicamp. Can he put it together? You used a 4th-round pick on Jordan Watkins. He's a 4-3 guy. Cowing's a 4-4 guy. You wanted to get faster at wideout. So you trade Deebo. You have some of those speedsters. Now it's time for Kyle Shanahan and this coaching staff to put it together to make this offense look a little bit different, to be a little bit faster. And I think trading away Deebo will help them accomplish that. And they'll just be a better unit in 2025. Addition by subtraction.
2 last ones before we get out of here. You cover the Niners, but you also cover the Eagles. And there was an article out this week talking about every team's fatal flaw. And just to give you an idea of what they had. This was what this article had. Green Bay or Philly, they said that the D-line, defections have made that their fatal flaw, which is that I find that hard to believe, but we'll get your thoughts. Baltimore, wide receiver. Kansas City, O-line. Chargers, the lack of a star weapon. I guess they're not big Amarion Hampton fans. Houston, O-line. Green Bay, no true number one corner. Detroit lost both their offensive and defensive coordinators. Buffalo, they say too much on Josh Allen's shoulders. Rams, Stafford's age. Cincinnati, their defense. Washington, their D-line. Didn't list the Niners because they didn't have them as one of the top 11 Super Bowl contenders. What would you say? You cover the Niners and the Eagles, so what would you say the Eagles' fatal flaw is, if there is one? And what do you think? What's the Niners' fatal flaw in your opinion?
I think the Eagles' biggest flaw is that they have to replace more than 4,000 snaps lost on the defensive side of the ball. And it's not going to be easy to replace all of those snaps that have now gone elsewhere for a team that was the number one defense in the NFL last year. Now, Moro Jomo had a higher pass rush win rate last year than Milton Williams, and so I think he's going to be a really good replacement. Here's the thing with the Eagles, though. They were never paying Milton Williams $26 million per year. They were never paying Josh Sweat $19 million a year. And so it made sense to let those players go. Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, they really stepped up at the end of last year. They were tremendous in that Super Bowl run. So I think the Eagles really like those players. But they're unproven at edge. And then at corner, by losing Darius Slay and Isaiah Rodgers, you're looking for Keely Ringo to put it together and step up. And he's a very raw player. And so I would say edge rusher and corner. They returned 10 of 11 starters on offense. So I think they're going to be in a good spot on the offensive side of the ball. At off-ball linebacker, Nakobe Dean hurt. You're not really sure who's going to start week one because your rookie first-round pick, Jahad Campbell, is dealing with the shoulder injury. It could be Jeremiah Trotter Jr. You also traded away C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You need to replace a starting safety. And so you're replacing a lot of marquee players from a defense that was the best defense in the NFL last year. So I would say that for Philadelphia. Biggest flaw for the Niners, man. I mean, you brought up pass rush earlier. I think linebacker play, cornerback depth, uncertainty at safety, and I'll always say offensive line.